Hi everyone, this is the Big Data Club. Welcome to our podcast about women in data and technology. We are featuring Cindy Gallop during this episode. I am Oran, and together with Maël, we will conduct this interview. I hope you will enjoy it. So the SCP Big Data Club is an association that is aiming to share content around big data, tech companies, and related topics to as many people as possible. So today we are interviewing Cindy Gallop, creator of the sex tech concept and founder of MakeLoveNotPorn. She's a graduate of Oxford in literature and has an impressive career in advertising that led her to being named the Advertising Woman of the Year in 2003, and she was also one of the chairmen of BBH. So Cindy Gallop, good morning. Thanks so much for accepting to be one of our guests for the Women in Tech Week. We have so many questions for you.
Great, it's a pleasure to be
Cindy,
here.
for being here. So much. If you don't mind, we'll start with a short question just for the audience and our participants to get to know you and get to know your company. How would you describe your platform, and what is the vision behind Not Porn?
Sure. So Make Love Not Porn is the world's first and only user-generated, human-curated social sex video sharing platform. And that's because we are pro-sex, pro-porn, pro-knowing the difference. I started Make Love Not Porn based on my direct personal experience dating younger men and realizing that when we don't talk about sex in the real world, porn becomes sex education by default in not a good way. And so, Make Love Not Porn is effectively what Facebook would be if Facebook allowed you to socially, sexually self-express. Because what we're doing is we are socializing and normalizing sex in the real world, making it easier for everybody to talk about, with the ultimate aim of ending rape culture. And we have proof of concept, even in our tiny bootstrapping startup scenario, that we are very effective at doing this, because we help to end rape culture by doing something very simple that nevertheless nobody else is doing. Our social sex videos show you how wonderful, great consensual communicative sex is in the real world. Our amazing contributors, or as we call them, Make Love Not Porn stars, role model good sexual values and good sexual behavior. And we make all of that aspirational versus what you see in porn. So we call ourselves the social sex revolution. The revolutionary part is not the sex, it's the social.
How did you design the business model of a social sex platform?
So I designed Make Love Not Porn around my own beliefs and philosophies. And by the way, I would say to our audience that this is the wonderful thing about starting your own venture. You can make it work exactly the way you want it to. So I designed our revenue sharing business model, and just to explain to our listeners, on Make Love Not Porn, our members pay to subscribe, rent and stream social sex videos. Half that income goes to our contributors, who we call our Make Love Not Porn stars. And I designed that business model for two reasons. The first is that I believe very strongly that everybody should realize the financial value of what they create. And I feel that especially strongly because my background, career-wise, is theatre and advertising. Two industries where ideas and creativity are massively undervalued, even by the creators themselves. So I believe that when you create something that gives other people pleasure, whatever that creative output may be, you deserve to see a financial return on it. And the more people you give more pleasure to, the greater that financial return should be. And, in a world where, as you know, so many people are struggling to make money when so much is available for free on the internet, I would like to see many more people designing a business model around, the principle I've just articulated. The second reason I designed our revenue sharing business model was to democratize access to income. So when we launched MakeLoveNotPorn.tv 9 years ago now, I wrote a blog post introducing our business model. and I titled it, How Make Love Not Porn Can Help the Global Economy. And I began it by saying, you know, all those little scam ads that pop up on the internet all the time going, make $2,000 a week working from home. Well, now you can. And the point I made was, you know, we would love Make Love Not Porn one day to hit the kind of critical mass where your social sex video could get 1 million rentals at $5 per rental, and we give you half that income. Now, we're a very long way away from that because unfortunately, as a sex tech startup, we battle a huge number of challenges other startups don't. But I have to tell you that it has been wonderfully rewarding in the pandemic to hear from our Make Love Not Porn stars who, like everybody else, they've lost jobs, they can't find work. They tell us that our monthly Make Love Not Porn payouts have been helping them survive the pandemic. You know, people, because effectively we're bonus income. And so people have used income from Make Love Not Porn to pay their rent, to pay off student loans, you know, to buy things they couldn't afford it otherwise. You know, one couple bought a washing machine, they couldn't afford it otherwise. And that is enormously rewarding to hear that, you know, we are contributing to people's lives through the income they can make purely by sharing their real world sex on Make Love Not Porn.
And what you described is basically that more or less everyone, if not everyone, can be part of this dynamic, this platform by sending you the videos of their private lives. And so that raises a question is, what are the criteria of the selection for a video? I read that in some of your last interviews, you wanted to accept something like a rate of 99%. And so how do you deal and why would you accept 99% of videos?
Sure. So I want to place my answer to that question in the context of the broader tech world as a whole. Because Make Love Not Porn is a sex tech venture, people don't realize how much the rest of the tech world could be learning from how we operate. And what I mean by that is the young white male founders of the giant tech platforms that dominate our lives today are not the primary targets, online and offline, of harassment, abuse, racism, sexual assault, violence, rape, revenge porn. Therefore, they did not and they do not proactively design for the prevention of any of those things on their platforms. And we see the results around us of that every single day. Those of us who are most at risk every single day, women, Black people, people of color, LGBTQ, the disabled, we design safe spaces and safe experiences. I and my tiny team spent literally years concepting and designing Make Love Not Porn before we ever built it, because we knew that if we were going to invite people to do something they've never done before, socially share their real world sex, we had to think through every possible ramification of that to create a completely safe and trustworthy space. So first of all, you know, we operate not only unlike anybody else in the adult sphere, we operate unlike anybody else on the internet, period. And secondly, that is why every single thing we do has been consciously and intentionally designed to create a very particular kind of space and attract a very particular kind of content. And you know, just to make our listeners aware, I designed Make Love Not Porn around what everybody else should have. Nobody did: human curation. There is no self-publishing of anything on Make Love Not Porn. Our curators watch every single video submitted from beginning to end to make sure it's real world sex. Nobody else does that anywhere else on the internet. Our curators review every single post on what we call Make Love Not Porn Social, which is the ability on your profile to post photographs, text, illustration, which, by the way, can be as safe work or not safe work as you like, but we review every post, we approve them, we publish them. We review every single comment on every single video before we publish that comment. we can vouch for every piece of content on our platform in a way that nobody else anywhere else on the internet can. And that is why, ironically, Make Love Not Porn is the safest place on the internet. Oh, what happened to Mael?
I guess it's the internet connection.
All right, he just disappeared. Shall I wait for him to come back, or shall I carry on with my answer?
Carry on.
Okay, right. So, a bit of a long-winded way to address Mael's specific question, which he's quite right. And again, this is what a lot of big tech platforms don't understand. When you start a venture with a very clear vision for what you want your platform to be and what you want the content on your platform to be, and when you are intentional about that, then that is what you will get. So I said to my team at the start of this venture, I want our acceptance rate for videos to be 99.9%, because I don't want us to reject anybody's real world sex. When our contributors, our Make Love Not Porn stars, have made themselves vulnerable, are sharing this most intimate part of their lives, I want to make sure that we welcome it with open arms. And all I'm talking about is a very basic principle that every tech platform should operate, which is, we only want content on Make Love Not Porn that is you making love not porn. Okay. And by the way, when I say that, I mean, we exist to celebrate the full glorious spectrum of human sexuality. We are all inclusive. We have BDSM, kink, but we have the real world version on our platform. So what that means is we make it really clear, not just in the frequently asked questions section on our platform, but across all our social channels in every media interview, exactly what kind of videos Make Love Not Porn is for. And when you put out there exactly what kind of content you want, that is the kind of content you get. That is how you ensure that you are almost always welcoming the videos that are incoming, because you've made it really, really clear what kind of videos you want.
And that was another question I was wondering, as you have a revenue sharing of 50%, which is great, what are the characteristics you've noticed of the top performers on your platform?
So I'm very glad you asked that question, Aram, because as I said, every single thing about Make Love Not Porn was consciously and intentionally designed. And so we do something that is unlike any other video platform on the internet. We deliberately do not show you which videos are the most rented and the most viewed. And we deliberately do not do that for two reasons. The first is real world sex is not competitive. We value every single one of our Make Love Not Porn stars and every single one of our videos equally. Because as I said, we exist to celebrate the full glorious spectrum of human sexuality. So we do not rate, score, classify, categorize, present those videos in any kind of competitive context. And the second reason we do not show you which are the most rented videos is because we did not want to create a dynamic on our platform where anybody might go, oh, if we have sex like that, we'll make more money. Because while I designed Make Love Not Porn around a revenue sharing model, we did not want financial reasons to be the primary motivator for anybody sharing their real world sex. And by the way, we have been very effective in that. It absolutely isn't. We have Make Love Not Porn stars who uploaded videos without even realizing they could make money out of them. The vast majority of our Make Love Not Porn stars had never filmed themselves doing anything sexual before ever. They are doing it for us because they believe in our social mission. They too want to see a more open, healthy dialogue and attitudes around sex. And so, our human curation enables us to manage out anybody who is overly financially motivated. But everything about the way that we've designed Make Love Not Porn means that that is not the primary motivation. As I said, it's a wonderful bonus, and we want people to make as much money as possible, but that is not their primary motivation for sharing their real world sex on Make Love Not Porn.
A question regarding how you build the company in the first stages of the creation of Make Love Not Porn. I've got a question regarding fundings. You mentioned in one of your last TED Talks that it has been hard time when you had to build a company and fund your company to find investors. It's something we quite like to hear about and to know more, and what were the motive behind their refusals.
Sure. So when it comes to the conventional investor world, and by that I mean the conventional routes that tech startups normally take to obtain funding, the VC world, my biggest obstacle finding investors and funding for Make Love Not Porn has been the social dynamic that I call fear of what other people will think. Because it is never about what the person I'm talking to thinks. When you understand what we're doing at Make Love Not Porn and why we're doing it, nobody can argue with it. The business case is very clear. It is always their fear of what they think other people will think, which operates around sex more than any other area. So I realized very early on that Make Love Not Porn is not a venture capital friendly venture. Okay, in the VC world, there are too many stakeholders, too many partners, too many LPs. And here's the frustrating thing, because I know that my investors are out there. They are impossible to find by the usual means, because my investors all have one thing in common. Your willingness to fund Make Love Not Porn is entirely a function of your personal sexual journey. Your willingness to fund Make Love Not Porn is a function of your personal lens on sex and sexuality, driven by your own experience, and there is no way to research and target for that. Not least because sex is the one area where you cannot tell from the outside what anybody thinks on the inside. The people you think would totally get it don't. The people you thought were total prudes do. And so I put what I'm doing out there all the time in the public domain, because I have to rely on those synaptic connections being made that will draw those investors to me. And as you can imagine, this is a very long, slow, painful process. And sorry, just I'm gonna take some water.
I'll take some too.
And actually, the demonstration of this is how I found my original investor. Because I pitched Make Love Not Porn for 2 years, from 2009, when I had that extraordinary response to my TED Talk, realized I'd uncovered a huge global social issue, had a responsibility to take Make Love Not Porn forwards to make it much more far-reaching and effective. I pitched MakeLoveNotPorn.tv for 2 years, from 2009 to 2011, because that is how long it took me to find one investor who got it. And actually, his funding Make Love Not Porn was kind of an accident, because he was somebody I'd known for a very long time. And he was in town in New York on business. And so we met up for dinner. And purely as dinner table conversation, I told him what I was doing. And he got dollar signs in his eyes and went, "I want to fund that." And I was really taken aback, because I thought he might be a bit prudish in this area. And he got it when I didn't expect him to. That is what I mean by the fact that, I've realized through all my efforts to raise funding that those are the people I have to find. They are the ones whose, personal journey, personal perspective on sex means that they will get it. And the good news is that in the past year, actually that's been happening more and more. But because I'm about to set out to raise another round of funding for Make Love Not Porn, and I feel more optimistic than I ever have before that I will be able to do that. And that is because, from where we sit at Make Love Not Porn, we've observed two very interesting trends in the pandemic that are very good news for us, but also good news for sex tech ventures as a whole. So the first trend is the pandemic has proven that what we all thought for years is not true, because for years, everybody's been going, the future's digital, AR this, VR that. Boy, oh boy, has the pandemic ever proven that what we are all desperate for on the other side of this is in real life, IRL human touch, connection, love, intimacy, feelings, sex. The pandemic has driven a huge mindset shift in terms of how we value all of those things. You know, those little physical gestures that we thought nothing of a year and a half ago, you know, people on social media now go, I would kill for a hug. We thought nothing of hugging other people back at the start of 2020. And we have now completely revalued things that we did without even thinking about them, you know, a year and a half ago. So that is very good for human relationships and for any venture to do with sex and facilitating better relationships, like Make Love Not Porn. And then the second trend we've observed is Make Love Not Porn is a global platform. The pandemic is global. We have all been in lockdown globally. And unfortunately, many countries still are. Other countries are going back into lockdown. So, you know, when you have whole families in lockdown for months on end together, couples in lockdown together, roommates in lockdown together, that forces a breakdown of the usual societal barriers of shame and embarrassment around perfectly normal human bodily functions and anything to do with sex. You know, when you're a family in lockdown for months on end, you've got to face up to the fact that behind that closed bedroom door, your teenage son is masturbating to Pornhub. Okay, you know, if you're a family in lockdown, the kids have got to face up to the fact that behind that closed bedroom door, the parents are having sex. You know, and we are seeing much more willingness to be open about all of this. You know, in the past year, at Make Love Not Porn, we have seen more parents than ever before writing to us, telling us that they are buying subscriptions to Make Love Not Porn for their 18 and over 20-something children, because they want them to see what happy, healthy sexual relationships look like. And so that is very good news for everybody in sex tech. And it's why, as I say, I'm more optimistic than ever before about my ability to raise the round of funding I'm about to go out and raise.
I wish my parents had done something like that. It would have been so cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the standard 4 years ago when I was 18 wasn't really that one. So I would have loved to have that kind of celebration.
And what is very important around about what we do that nobody else is that, you know, as a unique venture, Make Love Not Porn has a unique ability. The ability to change people's sexual attitudes and behavior for the better. And that's because all around us in popular culture, we are surrounded by creative expressions and narratives of relationships, you know, whether that's in the movies, on TV, on Netflix, in streaming. We see many narratives of relationships, but we never see the actual sex. On Make Love Not Porn, you get to see the actual sex, but you also see the relationships. Because in our social sex videos, those two things are indivisible. And by the way, I don't mean simply that you get to see healthy relationship dynamics in our couples, partnered, threesome, etc. videos. You also get to see people's relationships with themselves. In our solo masturbation videos, which we have many, you know, men, women, non-binary, trans individuals sharing this very intimate act, our tag is me time, you get to see what a healthy relationship with yourself and your sexuality looks like. You know, and that is why people find our videos on Make Love Not Porn an absolute revelation. And they help change the way people feel about themselves, their own bodies, their own sexuality, their relationships, their own lives.
So cool. I'm so curious about the fact that you can't really promote like on Facebook or Instagram your platform when we are always seeing like this kind of advertisement, but for the male gaze. So how do you promote your platform? How do you do that when you can't post on every social media? Like crazy that you can do promotion as any other brand.
Yep. No. So you're talking about one of my biggest frustrations, Aran, and it's worth making our audience aware that this is something that is absolutely gendered, because it's not simply Make Love Not Porn that can't advertise on Facebook, Instagram, every social platform. It's any female lens sexual health and wellness venture. Menstruation ventures can't advertise. Menopause ventures can't advertise. Fertility ventures can't advertise. In the meantime, male sexual health and wellness, no problem. Erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, absolutely fine. It's infuriating. And again, that's because, the young white male founders of these giant platforms designed a patriarchal lens into everything to do with them. So we have to be enormously creative about how we promote ourselves. And again, another reason for the frustration, by the way, is I know Make Love Not Porn is a very media and advertising responsive venture. And I know that because our growth has been entirely organic, and it's been driven by two things: media coverage and search. The one benefit of being a controversial venture is that we get ongoing media coverage all around the world without doing any media PR or outreach. Just as well, by the way, we don't have the funding, we can't afford it. And whenever somebody covers us in any country in the world, that country rockets to be number 2 in traffic after the US, no matter how tiny that country is. So to give a couple of examples, a few years ago, somebody wrote about us in Serbia. Serbia is tiny, okay, number 2 in traffic after the US. That summer, we were written about in Switzerland, minuscule, okay, number 2 in traffic after the US. Last year, somebody wrote about us in one of the biggest newspapers in South Korea. I woke up to South Korea as our number 1 source of traffic, accounting for 56% of it. That is how much, when people find out about us, they want what we do. And by the way, it's obviously equally frustrating that we have not yet raised the kind of funding that would enable us to translate and localize the site, because we got a huge amount of traffic from South Korea. South Korea is a market where not many people speak and read English. And so unfortunately, there's an equally high bounce off rate, because at the moment we only operate in English. And then, to give you an idea again of how huge the opportunity is when we are funded to deliver against it, every day, people search for us all around the world without knowing that we exist. And what I mean by that is the top search terms that drive people to us are make love, not porn, real sex, not porn, make love, not porn when people don't know there's a business actually called that. One young man told me that he found us when he Googled porn that is not porn, because he was so fed up with all the porn out there. He wanted something different. He had no idea how to search for it. So he just entered porn that is not porn. And when you do that, you find Make Love Not Porn. So people want what we are. As I like to put it, if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, Make Love Not Porn is the real world documentary. We are not a competitor to porn. We are a counterpoint and a complement. We are what the world so desperately needs, a unique window onto the funny, messy, glorious, comical, fabulous, awkward, hilarious sex we all have in the real world. And people are looking for us without knowing that we exist. So I am continually trying to overcome the advertising hurdle by finding any way we can to advertise that creates case studies that I can show to other platforms and go, look, we advertised Make Love Not Porn and the sky did not fall. So we have one of those going on at the moment. So I have to support myself alongside Make Love Not Porn, because until we raise the kind of funding I need to be able to pay myself a living wage where I can focus fully on Make Love Not Porn, I support myself through paid public speaking and consultancy. And because my background is advertising, I was asked by Nine, which is a very big media conglomerate in Australia, if I would judge an advertising awards competition they are launching in June around a big sporting event in Australia. And normally I would charge to do this. But what I said to Nine, given that they are a media group, I said, I will do this for you in return for free advertising space for Make Love Not Porn on your media properties.
Brilliant.
And they totally agreed to do that. So we have just started running in Australia across Nine's media properties a digital advertising campaign pro bono for Make Love Not Porn. You know, we're advertising Make Love Not Porn. You can click through to MakeLoveNotPorn.tv. You know, our ads are running now through to the end of June, which is when I judge this advertising competition. And, you know, obviously because it's pro bono ad inventory, you know, it's not the kind of ad campaign where we can say we want to buy this target, we want to get this much reach. So, you know, I'm obviously hoping it will help our business in Australia. But the more important thing is that it creates a case study of, look, we ran digital ads for Make Love Not Porn and everything was fine. The sky did not fall. You know, so that's one example of what we're doing. Another example of having to get creative around this is we just launched last month our podcast. So we now have a podcast from Make Love Not Porn called The Social Sex Revolution. And, you know, people, by the way, have been asking us for a podcast for years. But, you know, we didn't want to launch a podcast just to have a podcast. We wanted our podcast to be utterly unique, and it is, because our podcast basically leverages the unique insights that we have into how the world is really having real world sex that nobody else has, because we are this unique window. And so our podcast is hosted by our curator, Bex, and each week he interviews one or two of our Make Love Not Porn stars, solo or coupled, about their unique personal journey, how they came to Make Love Not Porn, why they decided to share their real world sex, the impact it's had on them. And then Bex and our community manager, Ariel, have a chat that we call Curation Corner, where they talk about the unique insights and trends that we see based on our unique pool of real world sex data, which is videos of how the world is actually having real world sex. So first of all, you know, this is utterly unique content, which is fascinating. It's very funny, by the way. You know, I laugh out loud listening to our podcast episodes. But B, we absolutely designed our podcast to be a phenomenal sales tool for Make Love Not Porn. Because there is no way you can listen to these conversations, not go, oh my God, I have to watch every single video they're talking about, because you've heard the story behind it. You've heard about, you know, what they were feeling when they recorded that video. So the podcast itself acts as a sales tool. But what it also means is that we now have something to advertise that is not our site. And so when we run up against the advertising barrier that is, no, you can't advertise, you know, a social sex platform, we can send people to our podcast, you know, which is on Spotify, on Apple, on all the usual places. And we can advertise our podcast, and then our podcast is a very compelling, you know, sales tool to send people to our site. So that's the kind of, you know, creative way in which we have to overcome these advertising barriers. And again, by the way, guys, you know, I will just say, you know, the very fact that a venture whose mission is to end rape culture has to do this is ridiculous. Because as you know, rape culture is being perpetuated all around us by the male lens, objectification of women in so many ways, and yet a venture whose entire raison d'etre is to end rape culture is not allowed to promote itself.
Well, thank you for this insight on how you deal with these restrictions, and it's much enlightening for us to see. And really interesting. Another aspect is that you write it also adds content to your videos. It has deepness in what people do in their videos. So it's very much an add-on. So quite like it, really. And I got another question. You talked about the philosophy of your concept and the vision that you have. In a sense, it revolutionized the industry. And would you say that the sex tech sector is finally seen as more legitimate industry? Or how do you see the industry moving or changing as you're quite...
So, you know, when I said earlier, when you have a truly world-changing startup, you have to change the world to fit it, not the other way around. That is absolutely my approach to everything I've been doing for the past 12 years, because I've been parallel pathing two things: building my startup and working to change the cultural context around it to enable my startup to grow and thrive. So 7 years ago, I deliberately set out to define, pioneer and champion my own category, sex tech. And so I wrote the definition of sex tech. If you Google sex tech, I'm result 1 on page 1. And for the benefit of our listeners, sex tech is any form of technology or tech venture designed to innovate, disrupt, and enhance in any area of human sexuality and human sexual experience. I coined the hashtag sex tech. I did not invent the term per se, but I am directly responsible for spreading the hashtag as widely as it's used today. And I began speaking at tech conferences all around the world on why the next big thing in tech is disrupting sex, and why sex tech is the sector to fund. And I began doing this purely to create a climate of receptivity amongst investors, to legitimize my own category so they would want to fund Make Love Not Porn. But, you know, all the work I've done has meant that sex tech today is absolutely a legitimate tech category. You know, if you Google sex tech today, you will see many, you know, media, a lot of media coverage, a lot of research reports. You know, sex tech is now a thing in a way it wasn't when I began determined to legitimize it. Now, the one caveat on that is that, you know, I've been doing all of that to benefit my own startup as well as everybody else's. You know, my own startup is still the one that is, you know, not benefiting sufficiently yet from this, because even within sex tech, there is what I call a hierarchy of acceptability. So, you know, what we've seen over the years is at the most acceptable end of that hierarchy are sex toys and D2C sex-related products, you know, condoms, lubes, etc. And they're acceptable because, you know, first of all, you know, vibrator sex toys now, there is a familiarity with, you know, the sector, but also because it's very easy for investors to see how the D2C concept translates into sex-related areas with ventures like Maud, Unbound, you know, and so funding is easier and easier for those ventures in that area to get. Then moving up the hierarchy, there is an increasing acceptability for a number of ventures that are audio porn or audio erotica. And that's acceptable because you just listen. You don't have to see anything. You don't see anything nasty. So investors have been much more willing to fund, you know, Dipsy, Quinn, Femtasy, you know. Unfortunately, Make Love Not Porn operates at the extreme end of that spectrum. Oh my God, people are having sex on video. Ah! and so we still, even within sex tech, we have more challenges than other ventures. But again, as I said, the people who get it really get it. And so, I'm very hopeful that, we too will get there on the funding front.
I remember I saw one day someone said as an advice to other sex tech creators, don't talk about sex, talk about wellness, talk about femininity. And it was like, that's not really what they say, and just talk about wellness if you want to be founded. So
no. So I completely disagree with that perspective. And by the way, I sympathize with it. Okay, because I am, I'm not a fan of the fact that femtech as a term had to be coined, and I was there at the very beginning because femtech was coined by Ida Tin, who is the wonderful founder of Clue, the menstruation app. And, Ida convened a number of salons, back in the day here in New York, where she invited a bunch of us, myself included, who, all had ventures in this area of sexual health and wellness, to talk about how to overcome these ridiculous barriers with finding investors and funding. And so, the term femtech was coined because, a number of ventures did not want to use the term sex tech. And I was very candid in those discussions back in the day. I said, I totally understand why you want to do this, but I'm going to carry right on being sex tech. And, the reason for that is, the single most important piece of advice that I have to give all the time to other sex tech entrepreneurs is take yourself out of the shadows. And what I mean by that is people working in this area unconsciously internalize, without even realizing they're doing it, society's disapproval of what they're doing in a way that then negatively impacts their ability to do business and to do the kind of business they want to do. And so, I'll give you one example, and this is from many years ago, but, a young woman came to me with a sex tech startup. And there are obviously many of these now, but back in the day, she wanted to redesign sex toys, make them cool, sell them online. So she was talking me through her startup, and she went, and the thing is, Cindy, people are embarrassed to be seen buying sex toys. So we're going to package them like this, very discreetly, we're going to send them up. And I said to her, okay, hold it right there. You need to go right back to the beginning and reconcept your startup from the ground up. Because you need not to say to me, people are embarrassed to be seen buying sex toys. You need to say to me, we're going to make people not embarrassed to be seen buying sex toys. When you concept a venture around existing societal bias and prejudice, all you do is reinforce it. I refuse to bow to existing bias and prejudice because I'm out to change it completely. And in fact, I always remember years ago, I was booked by an entertainment conference in LA to open the conference by doing a fireside chat with Larry Flint, the founder of Hustler. And so I was in the green room with Larry before the conference started, running through the questions I was going to ask him on stage. And one of the questions I wanted to ask him was, I said, Larry, you pioneered in an industry where nobody is ever encouraged to pioneer. And I was going to go on and ask him, what would you say to entrepreneurs today to encourage them to do the same thing? But he stopped me, he interrupted me, and he went, I never thought of myself as a pioneer because I just didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I love that. And that is how I tell other sex tech entrepreneurs operate. You're not doing anything wrong.
We see your point, and I quite like it. And it's very much clear with what you explained before, the fact that you don't want to match the current situation or what people think or believe, but you want to change the way they should, or it's maybe better to. So makes much sense. Like it very much.
As I said earlier, Mal, everything about Make Love Not Porn is consciously and intentionally designed because we are socializing and normalizing sex in the real world. We are taking the shame, embarrassment, and guilt out of it. I like to call Make Love Not Porn a shame changer. And we are bringing sex out into the sunlight. And so, one example of that is, back in the day when we were building our platform, my lead user experience designer, Uni Chase, she said to me, everything on the internet to do with sex is dark and black. We're going to be white. And so that is why when you look at MakeLoveNotPorn.tv, our background is white. We are
That's
out in the open, transparent, we're in the sunlight. Everything we do is social, deliberately.
Well, that's lovely. Very much like it. Now I've got a small question regarding, as you know, we are part of Big Data Club, and one of our main interests is about data and how we deal with data in business. And so there's a big question for you and for your company is how do you leverage data? How do you extract data from your business, and what can you do to make use of it in a business aspect?
Sure. So I absolutely designed Make Love Not Porn with the intention of having a revenue stream be data, but not in the way that everybody else in tech uses data. Okay.
What way?
I designed Make Love Not Porn to be the Kinsey of today. Real world, real time, real life human sexual behavior, captured and aggregated in a way that nobody else is doing, in an area that is notoriously research and data free, because for all the reasons that I fight a battle on a daily basis, nobody is funding the ComScore of sex, nobody's funding, the data analytics started in this area. And also because this is the sector where in research and data, there is the widest possible gap between what people say and what people actually do. And we are all about what people actually do. So at Make Love Not Porn, we deliberately do not capture any data about our members beyond their email address. Obviously, we have, we have analytics that show us where our traffic comes from. We have a sense of, we have members and traffic from 187 countries. We're fully global, but we deliberately do not, again, at Make Love Not Porn, our default setting is privacy. We designed our platform in ways that everybody else on the internet should have, but didn't. Where we see the opportunity data-wise is in our unique pool of data, which is our real-world sex videos. And we see that data as deployable in very powerful ways in the era of AI and machine learning. And so I am, this is kind of confidential, but I'm talking about it to you guys, which is fine because, given you are, the Big Data Club, I think you'll find this very interesting. So I am, talking to a partner at the moment about using AI and machine learning with our data to create an algorithm for consent. And what I mean by that is, as I said to you, our real world sex videos role model good sexual values and good sexual behavior, okay? In all sorts of ways that are to do with the dynamics of how our Make Love Not Porn stars interact with themselves and each other. We can use AI to extrapolate that into an algorithm that has many, many use cases. So for example, it could be used by Hollywood, by anybody, filming sex scenes to be able to identify what is truly consensual in terms of how you replicate sexual dynamics on screen. Because as we all know, again, through a patriarchal male lens, a lot of the sex scenes around us in popular culture, in movies and TV, reflect very unfortunate dynamics. I mean, the most extreme example is Game of Thrones, and how that perpetuates rape culture. And there's been a lot of analysis about that. There are many depictions of, so-called consensual sex that replicate sexual violence in various ways. You know, the whole trope of, oh, you know, she likes it really. You know, it started off rape and then she really got into it. I mean, just appalling things that are perpetuating rape culture. So enormous applicability in the world of anybody, you know, creating visual representations of sex, but also applicability in criminal court when actually trying rape cases and what does and does not constitute consent. So you know, we're fascinated by this opportunity, and this is an utterly unique opportunity to use our utterly unique data to create something that would have tremendous benefit for the world at large. I mean, that's just one example. At a more mundane level, you know, we have the ability, and again, obviously, all of this really kicks in at scale, which is why I need to raise funding to be able to deliver on this. But you know, we have the ability to deliver real-world sex data in a way that nobody else is doing, because in the absence of this data, and incidentally, you know, I know from friends who work in academia, you know, in the same way I can't get funded, they can't get grants and funding for academic studies into sex. You know, I mean, this is a universal issue, and why there's such a lack of data. But you know, in the absence of this, what has happened is, very regrettably, Pornhub does a phenomenal job with its own data. Okay, so every year Pornhub releases, you know, studies of, you know, you've seen them. The problem with that is, first of all, Pornhub's data is not reflective of the porn industry as a whole. And by the way, I know this because, you know, Pornhub are fans of Make Love Not Porn. You know, I know people there. You know, years ago, you know, I asked them if they had any industry data, because I was looking at that just as a backdrop to the case I was building for investment. And they have, I mean, there is no industry-wide data in the porn industry. So Pornhub's data only relates to Pornhub. Yet people extrapolate out from it to talk about porn as a whole, which is not correct. And then, even worse, because of the lack of data, people extrapolate from Pornhub data to think that that is data about human sexuality, and it's not. It could not be further from real-world sex and sexuality. And so I see enormous applicability for our data with anybody who is studying, you know, anything where human sexual insights are necessary. And we have the ability, you know, to answer questions nobody else can. So for example, a couple of years ago, a reporter reached out to us. She was writing a piece for Elite Daily, where, you know, because the whole world now knows what I was the first person to identify at TED 12 years ago, that in the absence of open conversation around sex, porn is sex education by default. And she was writing a piece about, you know, do women feel impelled to put on a performance when they have orgasms in the real world in the same way that porn stars do when you're watching porn? And so we were able to give her insights nobody else could, because on Make Love Not Porn, you know, we have a number of Make Love Not Porn stars who share videos, both of them having sex with partners, but also of them masturbating, you know, and having sex with themselves. And so our curator, Bex, was able to look at the side-by-side comparison of, do you come differently on your own when nobody else is around versus what you do with the partner? You know, and yes, there is undoubtedly an element where you will amplify your responses for the benefit of your partner, whereas when you are coming on your own, that is when you are reacting as you absolutely naturally would. Nobody else has the data to answer that question.
Well, we see many applications. That's a really interesting perspective. So thank you very much for sharing that with us, and makes much sense. So great. Hope it will lead to interesting insights.
Like justice, movies, and I mean, what you can do with real data on that. It's I mean, your startup. What is striking for me is that you can receive enough funding when you have such a brilliant idea. It just makes no sense for me. Even when I'm hearing everything is so coherent. Sorry. When I even went on the website, I saw the name of the categories, and it was so different. I was like, oh wow, I didn't expect that. So that's so much like warm and so much into it. It's not like violent and different categories in general website.
No, exactly, Oran. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I'd love to speak to that for the benefit of your audience. Because again, everything on Make Love Not Porn has this one end goal, which is to make it easier to talk about sex in the real world. Because we don't do that currently, we have no socially acceptable vocabulary with which to do so. The language of porn has rushed in to fill that gap. And that is not good for a number of reasons, not least of which is that, as you would expect in a male-dominated industry, the language of porn is predominantly male-generated. And I'm going to use obviously English language versions here, but I'm sure the same thing exists in French, okay? Because the person who coined the term finger blasting didn't have a vagina. Because if you have a vagina and you hear the term finger blasting, you want to cross your legs. The person who coined the term getting her ass railed never got his ass railed. Pounding, banging, slamming, wrecking, destroying. As I say, I'm sure you have French terms that are similar. All terms created by the people who do not possess the soft internal tissue to which those things are being done. So on Make Love Not Porn, we are building a new vocabulary for real world sex. We tag our videos completely differently to the tags you will find on Pornhub et al. We tag our videos with terms like juicy, succulent. Our tag for oral is downtown. Our tag for anal is deliberately derived from the recipient's experience of anal. We tag our anal sex videos, ow, 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 hey now. And we do that because we want you to take this language and use it beyond our platform in the real world. Because this is language that you can use to talk about sex in public without feeling embarrassed about what's coming out of your mouth, without having to worry about being overheard in the bar, the coffee shop. And it's language you can use to talk about what you want to do in bed in a celebratory, positive, and gender equal way. And our approach to tagging and language is also important because one of the quickest ways to make people think differently about something is to change the language around it. So we are using our tags to change the way people think about certain myths around sex. So, for example, porn, if that is the only place you're learning about sex from, porn teaches men that sex is entirely dick-centric. It's all about how big it is, how hot it is, how long you can keep it up. Actually, in the real world, men are frequently not erect or semi-erect. That's completely natural in real world sex. So we have a tag for those of our social sex videos where the man is not erect or semi-erect. That tag derives from the world of ice cream. We call those videos soft serve because soft serves are yummy and delicious.
It's very poetic. I like it. It's a nice way of describing new categories. So yeah, thanks.
Even when I watched the categories, I was like, oh, that's so much more appealing. You want to click and watch everything. Yeah, yep, it's better. It makes so much sense. I have no more question on my hand. What about you, Maël?
I think we're good. Well, you've been really enlightening, and we'd love to share with you our question, and you've been very explicit, and that's a really great conversation. So I'd like to thank you personally, and Oran also will agree. That was great.
Amazing.
And yeah, really inspiring vision and philosophy that is behind your platform, and it was really a pleasure to exchange with you. To have all these insights and the creativity that you have behind. So congratulations and thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I've enormously enjoyed talking to you guys. And what I would just like to say to our audience is, if you like what you've heard, first of all, please go to MakeLoveNotPorn.tv, sign up, subscribe to support us. Our subscriptions start at $10 a month. In euros, that's eminently affordable. So please support us that way. Please consider becoming Make Love Not Porn stars. As I said, we designed a very safe platform. It's fine to be anonymous. You can wear masks, faces in shadow, out of frame. We operate a rent and stream model because our commitment to you is the moment you don't want your video up anymore, we take it down. I mean, you could literally, we could publish your video one day. You're free to change your mind overnight. We'll take it down the next morning. That's totally fine. But one of the reasons I want to ask your audience to become Make Love Not Porn stars is because one of our agendas with Make Love Not Porn is we want to help countries reclaim their national sexual identity, because every country has one. A national heritage, tradition, values, stereotypes exist around sex as much as they do around other forms of behavior like cooking or eating. It's just we never talk about it. But anybody who has ever loved their way around the world can testify. People make love differently based on the culture, society, country they come from, or rather they used to. Porn is now homogenizing sex globally. And so we put the call out, make French love not porn, make Chinese love not porn, make Australian love not porn, because we would love to open up this dialogue in a national context. We would love to instill a sense of national pride in how a country has real world sex. And by the way, guys, I will just say that I feel this is especially important in the case of France. Let's face it, everybody sees you as the world's greatest lovers. We absolutely want to showcase Make French Love Not Porn. We wouldn't mind, by the way, instilling a sense of national competitiveness. We would love the Olympics of real world sex playing out on Make Love Not Porn. So please, everybody, consider becoming Make Love Not Porn stars. And then the final thing I would say is, and also, by the way, go and listen to our podcast, The Social Sex Revolution. It's on Spotify, Apple, everywhere. But the final thing I would say is, you've heard me talk about how hard it is to find investors and funding. So please, anybody who comes into contact with anybody you think might be open to this, help me out. Email cindy@makelovenotporn.com, introduce me. And especially, by the way, for the Big Data Club, any investors who get our potential, our unique potential in the world of data, I would really welcome, any introductions to anybody who might be interested in funding that aspect of Make Love Not Porn, because we need all the help we can get.
Perfect. I think maybe I have seen that Visa and MasterCard stopped the funding or the payments on Pornhub because of consent and the fact that Pornhub has rape videos and things like that. So perhaps they'll be interested in funding something that's actually social.
If only.
Hopefully. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much again. We will publish it, I think, the first week of June. And we'll tag you in it, obviously. Thank you so much.
Great, absolute pleasure. And send me the link. I will share it across my social channels.
Sure. Thank you very much. We really hope that it's going to be useful also for your company and for your video, and maybe bring a bit of our European and French diversity, as you mentioned. So maybe you'll have some members that will join you very shortly. Thank you very much, Cindy. It was really a pleasure, honestly.
We hope you enjoyed that episode. If you want to keep getting content around big data and technology, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We are the ESCP Big Data Club. Have a good day.